Hi, good morning, and welcome to yet another edition of uh, the Smart CA series. My name is Sripriya Kumar, and this is going to be a short presentation on charging fees by professional accountants. So I had done a sort of presentation for a longer webinar, which I'll be doing shortly. Uh, but I thought I should compress that into a smaller video so that people can look at it. So what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about charging of professional fees. I'd like to narrate some things which are contemporary and relevant in this context. And then we will actually look at an Excel template on how to charge fees. So if you want to receive a copy of this template, you can mail me on sripriya@spka.in. So here goes. So I'm starting with a PowerPoint presentation. We'll go through this very quickly, and we'll try and understand the context, etc. So very recently, there was a market report that said, while the market capitalization of the Nifty 500 companies grew by 200%, the audit fees grew only by 28% during the period 18 to 23. So that's 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And in 5 years, it grew only by 28%. So the NAFRA chairman had also commented about it. And he says there's a huge difference in fees between auditors abroad and those in India, despite the tasks being practically identical. So these sentiments were actually also echoed by the partner of a large firm. And I saw it in the media. It says expectations from auditors are rising, but it's not translating into higher fees. Conducting a high quality audit will need good talent, technology, and robust quality management processes. And so low fee levels can actually become a challenge for the audit process. Now, in 2021, NAFRA had published a consultation paper. It was largely in the context of whether small companies needed to have an audit mechanism at all, and they had put out some data on the fees that were charged. So this is one table from that consultation paper. They could not locate fee data from the MCA website for about 181,000 companies that you see here. But in the remaining cases as well, they reported very low fees. They said auditors' payments range 1,000 to 5,000. They found 39,000 companies. They found 129,000 companies in the range of less than 25,000 fees, and it's all for there to see. So the problem of a undercharged fee market is not just for the very large firms that audit listed companies or very large public interest entities, but it's also in the context of small and medium practitioners, and also in the context of the audits that we do, the C&AG, etc., also that we do. Now, NAFRA also interestingly did a fee calculation, a fee estimation rather, on what should be the fees. And they had worked out a certain basis based on number of man hours, the charge out rate that should be there, and then they translated into the fees that should be. So they say even if it's a 20 lakh turnover company, the audit fee based on their estimate of time has to be 1.5 lakhs in a small town and 4.57 lakhs in a metro city. That's just for a small firm. So it's very interesting. They said if your turnover is between 5 to 10 crores and you're in a small town, you must charge a fee of about 2.83. They said is the estimated audit fee based on their workings. So I did have a chance to look at their workings as well. I had in 2012 prepared a fee computation template, which I was working on. Of course, whether or not we've been able to charge that kind of fees is a different matter, but at least for us to know what we ought to be charging, I thought it was a good idea. So NAFRA also had done this time estimation. They said, even for a 20 lakh company, you need to spend 290 man hours. Well, one wouldn't know what the basis was, and it's not just turnover driven. It's also volume of transactions, complexity, the risks associated with the audit, etc. But be that as it may be, this is the NAFRA working and what NAFRA thinks should be the state of play for charging audit fees. This is an estimated template, and it's based on this template that they say the lowest audit fee should be 1,49,551 that you see right at the end here. Now, and this is the 1,49,000 that you see as the 1,50,000 at the end. So this is the NAFRA, what they said. Now, despite significant efforts, fees paid to professional accountants appears to be a matter of concern. This particularly impacts the SME segment of the practice, and we are unable to invest on growth or institutionalizing the practice. Charging fees involves a variety of factors. The fees should be fair. In any professional transaction, I think the compensation should be fair, competitive, and reflective of the value provided. ICI has, of course, provided certain recommended minimum scale of fees, but the absorption of such fee levels in the market continues to be very low. Now, let's go to why we need good fees. Good quality, good reputation, appropriate fees, resultant growth. I think these terms are fairly self-explanatory, and from a perspective of brevity, I will leave it to just to say that good fees drives good quality, drives good reputation, drives good growth, drives good quality again. Now, it's important to do right pricing. So whatever the engagement is, there is a risk and a complexity. There are your own input costs, right? Your materials, services, your input costs. Then you also spend time on the actual work, discussions, reporting, and document retention. So do we factor all these things when we arrive at a fee level for a professional accountant? Well, we just need to do much better. So these are the 8 important aspects that I'd like to discuss in this context. Retainers, fixed fees, value-based pricing, cost-plus pricing, market rates, value perception, specialization, risk, and complexity. I think these are some of, I wouldn't say these are the drivers of fees, but I think these are important things to remember in the context of pricing for professional services by professional accountants. So you can go for a fixed fee model, which is where you know the kind of work and you're able to estimate it accurately, both in terms of the quality of manpower that you need, as well as the time that you need to spend. Retainers are very good on matters such as tax, etc., where you might want to agree on the total time that you'll spend in a year or in a month. Value-based pricing is extremely important. Depending on how the client perceives your value, I think the fee levels ought to be different. In any case, the fundamental is a cost plus pricing, which is what I'm going to do in the Excel template. How do you determine a cost plus pricing and then apply it to whatever engagement you're doing? Market rate comparisons are very important. Along with market rates, what a competitor is likely to charge, it's also important to remember what stage of maturity you are in as a professional accountant. I mean, if you're a startup, then you obviously, have to bend a little more. There's a penetration pricing. But if you have reached a certain scale of maturity and, vintage, then I think you could well lead the market. Another very important thing is, if the best and the biggest firm, I wouldn't even say that, if a big firm is charging X, should a mid-sized firm, not look at 70-80% of X, or should you be looking at 20-30% of X? These are calls that one needs to take. Client's budget is, of course, very important. So I think the more the value add, the more the budget is, which also indicates that along with your pricing strategy, you must also have an engagement strategy. What's the segment you want to be in? Do you want to be in a high volume, low revenue per item segment, like filing, let's say, lots of tax returns? Can I file 50,000 tax returns? Or do you want to be in a niche boutique kind of thing, like, let's say, investment advisory, or investment banking advisory, mergers and acquisitions, etc., or a transfer pricing, or the insolvency code? So I think you need to make that choice. There's always a specialization premium. If you're good at something like, let's say, FEMA or income tax transfer pricing, those command, the GST litigation, for example, there's a specialization premium. Today, specialization premiums would also come in the areas of digital transformation, if you're very clued on how to service in the area of digital transformation. Complexity and risk. This is where I would put audits very high. I think audits are serious business and they're also risky business because you're actually signing there. So I think you need to appropriately price for such service. But today, before we walk to the Excel, what are we going to talk about? 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. Before we move into Excel, what are we going to talk about? How do you compute the fee? So first, there is a salary and overheads cost estimation. Then there is an idle time, training time, transition time, onboarding time, etc., which you need to estimate. You need to understand the engagement risk and complexity, and then you use the fee calculator and you make the fee proposal. Now, a lot of us believe that, as chartered accountants, we can't charge variable fees. Even I was under that impression for a very, very long time, but then it's not so. You can charge variable fees in the case of a receiver, liquidator, auditor of a cooperative society, valuer for the purpose of direct taxes and duties, fundraising services, debt recovery services, cost optimization services, insolvency professional, and most important, non-assurance services to non-audit clients. You're allowed to charge a variable fee. It can be based on the findings or it can be based on a percentage. And this is from query number 93 of the FAQs issued by the ESB of ICAI, and it's here in this presentation. So I think we need to negotiate with confidence. And as Peter Drucker says, the objective of any commercial enterprise should be to do well. And I don't think the CA profession or the profession of professional accountants is any exception. I think you must remember that you're rendering a professional service in an extremely professional manner. 2, you have qualification and quality. 3, there are obvious benefits to the client, whether it's in terms of risk mitigation, which you do, even in a statutory audit or in an internal audit or any kind of risk advisory services, to an opportunity, a cost optimization engagement, a transaction structuring, a merger and acquisition. And of course, benchmarking with your relevant peers, competitors, etc., is very important. I also think it's time that we move to hourly charge out rates, something that we've never done as a profession. And I think that's something we need to look at. Maybe, people will sit up and we'll be able to negotiate with confidence. But most importantly, you need to remember something. This happened to me with my first client. So I obviously didn't know how to price. And his name was Mr. Rahul. So I said, let me know, what should I price? He said, Priya, we want this done very quickly. And just remember, good, fast, and cheap. If something is good, it can't be fast and cheap. If something is fast, it can't be good and cheap. And if something is cheap, it can't be good and fast. So I think these 3 words sort of resonate in my mind all the time. And I think you should apply this yardstick appropriately and explain to your clients that if you want things done in a timely manner, quickly, you come in September and you give me your accounts for audit, then obviously the kind of pressure that we take on to deliver the same quality that you are used to delivering, it's very difficult. So, and I only want to say one thing. Right through, charging of fees has been a challenge. Some of us, of course, ICA came up with the minimum slab, but I don't think there was much absorption, as I said earlier. A lot of times we think somebody else will drive the change, but I think what's important is for us to drive the change. You can say ICA will do something, ICA can say the government will do something, but then I think, and as a profession, we are only 1,58,000 members. If we can in, sort of unison, kind of hold on to this proposal to say that we are good, and so we need to be right priced, I think a lot will change. So with this, I conclude my PPT. Now I have got an illustrative template that's been designed exclusively for the benefit of SMPs as a guide to arriving the fees. And obviously, you'll need to use this with caution. So let me show you the template. So this is the Excel template. It's just got 2 sheets, 3 sheets actually. So this is a simple fee calculator. How do I start? You first read the guide. You don't fill up anything on the first bucket, A. You go to 2. Now I've given it name-wise, and it's got the most advanced Excel formula this template has is VLOOKUP. That's it. So if you know VLOOKUPs, anyway, I've pre-populated it, you should be able to work on it. So I've got the name-wise salary cost. I have taken 22 working days per month into 12. You can take more or less. You finish the first blue box. The second blue box is your overheads estimation. If you have something that you have missed out, you can add here. You arrive at the overheads. Then you go right to the top. It's pulled up your salary cost from E29, which is this, and it's pulled your overhead cost from D48. So overheads as a percentage of your salary is 60%. I've estimated my idle time, training time, time off, etc. at 15% for the firm as a whole. So once you fill it up, you arrive at the salary cost per day, which is nothing but the salary cost divided by the number of days. It's auto-populated. The overheads gets picked up from D5, which is here. The idle time gets picked up from the blue above because you filled it up. It gives you the total charge out per day. Now, I have taken the ICAI slab rates for Class A cities. So this template you save for every client where you're giving a proposal. File save as XYZ Limited. Then you arrive at a firm rate. So you can arrive at whatever you want. So for example, I have taken the firm rate at an average here. So you can use whatever you want. So let's say I'll take it as an average of ICAI rate. So I'm taking an average here. Or you can even say, okay, 8,000. And then, 8,000 per man day. You can say 4,000, whatever you decide. But make sure it's not too way off the mark. Then you arrive at the final charge out per day. This is the firm rate, meaning this you should not change for a year. But for this particular assignment of XYZ, let's assume he was your first client. So you obviously want to do something for them at a lower price. So I go and change my numbers here. So for this particular engagement, I'm going to do these charge outs. So final charge out again is an entered number. The firm rate can actually be an average of ICAI rate and the total charge out rate. I'm just putting it. The final charge outs, I can take whatever I want, whatever you feel like. Once this template is populated, so this is purely your discretion for this engagement, right? Then you go to, this is the costing sheet for LMN Private Limited. Now again, risk complexity is the markup that one does. You can decide, if it's high risk, I will do 200, 100, 50. Or you can do 100, 50, 25. That's your option. This is based on firm's decision. Right? So you can decide. So what happens here, when I came to this engagement, let's say I had nothing here, it would be like this. So I say A, B, F, G, H. So I am going to use the senior partner, the junior partner, paid assistants too. So it automatically brought my charge out rate for A for this assignment from the column M on the previous sheet. So all the data got populated. Now this is, let's say, a medium risk engagement. This audit is very simple. So it's medium risk. I need to spend 33 man days and I arrive at the fee. Now, I think it's also important to explain to the client that my worked out fee is actually 192, but I'm fine. If you're doing 150, 175, I'm fine with anything. See, a template like this helps you to be aware of where you stand. And I think in that context, it's important to measure. So that's about it for this edition on charging fees by professional accountants. This is something I've been extremely passionate about. I think the market needs to grow, needs to move. And I think technology is hitting us in a big way. So we need to invest in tools. We need to invest in great people. So I think all this calls for a scaling up. And I hope this little presentation and the template was of some use to you. Do write to me with your inputs, suggestions, comments, anything to sripriya@spka.in. I'll sign off with this. So thank you very much. And of course, have a nice day and happy charging.